Okay, I think we're ready to start the first ever Azure and Friends event. Welcome everybody here at Norcloud's Place. Yay! Good. And everybody following at home or at office or anywhere around the world on the stream. Okay, let's get started. So, first event. It's probably good to say, what is Azure and Friends? Well, Azure and Friends is for making Azure friends. So it's a community to arrange events, share knowledge across multiple companies, and learn through open discussion. It's an open community. We try to make this really easy for beginners and experts alike to talk about everything related to Azure. It's an independent organization seeking to benefit everybody with Azure, and we try to create opportunities for collaboration, and we hope that everybody can be inspired by all our shows and presentations. We try, and let's see how this goes. This is the first one, so this is quite traditional, but in the future to offer a fresh twist on this topic. It's a safe environment to give and attend all kinds of events. This specific event is, for example, is quite normal speeches and presentation, but there, for example, the one provided by Heini is non-technical, and in the future we'll also have more non-technical presentations and events around Azure and technology, and also roundtables and other type of events. And because of that, there is no typical Azure and Friends speaker. Everybody comes from different backgrounds, and we want to be diverse and hope that everybody can join this and benefit from what we're doing. Now, firstly, we're at Norcloud's headquarters here in Helsinki, so we want to thank our host for providing the spaces and letting us be here, even though the COVID situation is getting a bit weird at the moment. And the agenda today. So after this introductory words, we have Simo Haakana from Barona presenting real-life Azure AD B2C adventures and journeys. And then we have Heini Ilmarinen from Polo Squad talking about presentation skill, because she's an MVP and she talks about how to probably hone your skills in presentation. And then we'll have Jani Nevalainen from Mallow presenting on Bicep. And after that, we'll unfortunately have to cut the stream, but in here, in person, we have our networking event and food and drinks. So, first event, we want some feedback. We want to try to make this the best Azure community in Finland and maybe probably in the world. So feedback is important. So if you can provide that, we'd really appreciate it. We'll be sharing the feedback form in the stream, and everybody here can also get this material later on. Now, since we're beginning the journey of Azure and Friends, we'd like to have more friends. So if you work in the field, technology field, or any kind of field doing jobs with Azure, doing cool projects, we'd like you to contact us so we can get you to share your knowledge and what happens in the world of Azure. You don't have to be already good, excellent presenters with multiple presentations and ad boards and so forth. I mean, you have to have no experience if you want to join us. So, and we can help you get the word out on cool projects out of there and present them to other people. If you have any questions, ideas, or just feel like contacting us, there's various ways. We have a website, azureandfriends.com, Twitter, Azure and Friends. This event was mainly in LinkedIn. There's also the company page for Azure and Friends. It's a non-profit page there. And also, for the Finnish in the audience, there's the MS Good Slack channel for the Finnish Microsoft technology people, and in there we have the hashtag Azure and Friends channel that you can join. Currently, joining the Slack is a bit weird, so just give us an email or try to contact us, and we'll get you an invitation into the Slack so you can join us. But that was my part from the beginning, and now we'll just have a technical break to let Simo come to the stage.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Simo Haakana. I'm working Barona as a solution architect, and I was asked to come to discuss about how we ended up using AD B2C in our customer IAM project and how we have felt or what we have learned maybe from that journey. Just a few words about Barona first, if not all are familiar who we are. So Barona is the largest staffing company or staffing agency in Finland, and we work in plenty of countries and all over Finland. We employ roughly 30,000 people each year, and our business is mainly focused on like finding employments for employees and helping our customers to find correct employees for their services. We do also outsourcing and temporary staffing for our customers, and those are maybe the biggest things that we do, but we do all kinds of work-life related stuff other than that also. Bit about numbers, not sure much to say. Maybe for this presentation, maybe the biggest numbers to like understand is that we are talking about tens of thousands of employees each year and hundreds of thousands of applicants each year that we need to process through our systems, and that puts us in the position that we need to have reliable IAM solution for that kind of masses, and that's what we are going to discuss today. So basically, what are the core reasons why we need IAM solution or customer IAM solution here? And why I speak about customer IAM solution is that even though that one of the big like use cases for our B2C usage is to offer our rental employees place or our identity and single sign-on solution. We have loads of like job seekers and candidates that we need to also provide IAM solution, and we need to have that kind of mass or solution that can support that kind of mass. So main use cases are that either you are seeking a job, you are applying through us, and you need to register to our service to leave the job application. Or then if you are employee of us, you need to mark your hours, get your pay slips, and that kind of services that we offer also for employees. So those are the main use cases. And the IAM in this case for us is highly crucial, since we are working each day, every day to get new applicants to see or apply to our jobs. So it needs to be always on, no days off, any time of the day. And that's why that's the key thing that we need it. Also, the user experience needs to be super simple, since there is loads of like non-technical people who need to apply through jobs through us, and we need to do it as easy as possible for those people and all people. So if there is a reason not to apply, maybe 20% of people will not do that, and we want to avoid that. Also, we need to support multiple languages and multiple brands, so we need a highly customizable solution that can work in any situation basically. And one decision that we have made quite early on in Barona, that we don't want to host things ourselves or be doing stuff that we can get as a service ourselves. So we need a SaaS solution for that use case. So where it all started really. In 2018 we in Barona made decision that we need to modernize our legacy IAM solution that was based on legacy custom ERP solution, and it's not greatest security. So we needed to tackle that problem, and we needed a highly reliable solution, like I said. And goal was to create or get service that has excellent user experience and offer that kind of way easy solution for all our new and existing solution to have IAM or SSO that is easy to integrate, easy for employees to use, and best practice all over. And the customizable and cost reasons were highly doubted that we needed highly customizable solution that can't cost too much, needs to be reliable, needs to be up 100% of the time. So this is really a crucial part of our business. What we tried to figure out in 2018 when we started planning the solution and picking the right tool for the job, we first started to discover all kinds of possibilities in the field that what can we use, and we had used quite a lot of different kind of tools already. We had our legacy systems, we had Auth0 in some use cases, we had all kinds of IAM and authentication solutions already, and we needed to centralize them all in this project. And first, as a bigger company, we started looking IDM-based solutions and that kind of more corporate stuff, try to figure out if that's the right direction for us. But quite soon in the project, we noticed that no, that's not the way we need. We need to focus on customer IAM solution that is easy and user-friendly. First, we looked at AWS Cognito, or that was one of the options that we looked at. And basically, it could do the job as far as we understood, but the why we didn't end up going with the AWS direction was mainly the customizability and the language support and that kind of stuff that wasn't there, at least in the OpenID Connect or OAuth Connect version of the Cognito service at that point. Or then we didn't know how to use it. But anyway, that was the main reason that it wasn't customizable enough for us. Then we, of course, looked at Auth0 that we already used in some use cases and were quite pleased. And basically, Auth0 could do the job really well. It's really easy to use for developers. It's quite user-friendly. It can be loads of customized and all kinds of stuff. And they are maybe one of the biggest players in the field, at least at that time. But Auth0 comes with nasty thing that it can be quite expensive if you go high enough in the scale. And that was not maybe, or that was the reason that we didn't choose Auth0. Then we look at the Azure AD B2C offering. At that time, it was already launched. I think it was a couple years old at that time, and it provided the scale and customizability and everything like that out of the box that we were looking for. It was reasonably the cost of that was reasonable, and overall it was quite what we were looking for. The main pain points that we noticed early on that it's not so, the developer experience of that product is not the greatest. If you need to do customization for that product, you need to understand quite a lot of XML files and understand how they work and what if they don't work, what breaks, and that's maybe the pain point in that product. But overall, we felt that the AD B2C was the right way to us to go forward, and we really haven't regret that decision, and that's why we chose that one. The solution that we really built on top of the Azure AD B2C was that we combined it with our own developed or self-developed identity master service that contains all the personal information about the people, and we use only SSO functionality mainly from the Azure AD B2C to handle the SSO, hard lifting, and security stuff, and then we integrate the AD B2C to our services that handles all the identities and is totally in our hands. We can customize it the way we want, we can add information, we can remove information, and we are in charge of the sensitive information that we get from employees of ours. We need, and the flexibility is what this setup brings to us. And this was the setup that we discussed with the Microsoft experts at that time, and it was the solution that they recommended, and I think it was the right solution anyway. Our custom master data service now provides us chance that we can easily integrate other services to use the personal data and identities in that service. In other our self-developed services and integrations, and we don't have to worry about what Microsoft brings to the table, and we just pick up the SSO solution that worked pretty well for our use case. The support for Microsoft taking use of the Azure AD B2C has been phenomenal, and we got lots of support from Microsoft Finland and Microsoft or AD B2C's development team when we were making the decision to pick this solution, and that was really one of the huge selling points for us, that we got so much support that we had reasonable understanding that what we are doing, and if there's gonna be problems in this kind of solution, we're gonna get help from Microsoft, and they will help us to solve these things. So we are not screwed if SSO goes down. And one of the benefits, or one of the big things that we got, was that we got participate in the private preview of the custom domain feature that's now generally available in the AD B2C. And that really was one of our demands that we needed. Like I already said, that the developer experience in this product is not the greatest. I feel like it's really, to this day, the biggest pain point, that there is a UI that you can basically get everything working, but for real world use cases, I would say that you want to create custom policies. That's how the AD B2C works, and then you're gonna have to figure out the XMLs and how they are gonna work. I can show you later about Microsoft examples what I mean, but thousands of lines of XML to get simple things working. The XML is great for that you can create almost anything you want in these user journeys, and you can have many different user journeys in the same systems when you deploy, because you can deploy multiple policies, but the developer experience is the pain point. And one of the biggest things I would say about that is that the issue was that we were not familiar with that setup, and I don't really believe that many, or Finland, there is only a handful of people who are really familiar with that setup and can help and can really support you in that one. So I hope that they will have some chances to improve that in the future, but it seems like it's quite baked in the product, the XML setup and that kind of stuff, so we will see. Overall, the project went really, really well. Our biggest pain points in the project were that once our developers got used to the XML setup and how the B2C works, then we got ball rolling, everything went smoothly until it came down time to release the software in the production, and then we were a bit hesitated that we didn't know that did we do everything right, what happened or what if there is some mistake in our policy and it breaks our security and whatnot, and we had to get some consultation help to audit the solution for us. I believe that we had done everything correctly, but it was great to check it anyway. But that was maybe the biggest hiccup in the project. Otherwise, the onboarding process for that service is quite smooth. You can do like seamless migration where you integrate the old systems to that AD B2C with REST APIs, and you can live migrate existing users over with their existing passwords and accounts and that kind of stuff, and it really makes it super simple to get people to the new SSO solution. Overall, we have been really pleased with the solution that we have made, and it has been over a year in production now, and we haven't got any major outages. There hasn't really been any problems to mention overall. It has been super reliable in that manner. And one thing that needs to be said, that the AD B2C has evolved in the product in these couple of years, that we have been working on it, and now the major problems that I would otherwise complain have been pretty much fixed now. There is now possibility that you don't have to change your application code to have password reset working. That can now be created into your solution, and custom domains are now widely available, so you can brand your service as you please. And also one thing that was always quite weird, that user info endpoint in OpenID Connect specification was missing from the product, but now it can be implemented to, and it makes it so much easier to implement it to existing OpenID Connect solutions. Our current issues with the product is that, or B2C, is that we want to get more analytics out of it, and more that kind of analytic stuff, and we know that it's possible, but we just haven't had time to figure it out, since it's not out of the box ready, and it requires some work in our part. We know it's possible, we know we can get good analytics out of it, but we need to figure it out still. So basically, now I can maybe show you a bit what we did develop for, if I can find my mouse. Yeah. So basically, this is what it looks like. Super simple solution. Most of the things, for example, in this page can be customized. Only things that Microsoft enforces you to have is the sign-in menu, and you can alter it with the CSS and JavaScript also, but that's not really that's not the thing that you can really change overall if that doesn't please you or you want something else. Or there might be a solution in the custom policies that you can do it, but we were pleased with this one. And for example, we can customize this login page for each of our services that we have integrated, and I know that we have like 3 different profiles for this one that work a bit differently and look a bit different. So loads of customization options here. Then if we take a look, for example, the pain point, let me get the link from there. So Microsoft provides you loads of examples, all the things that you can do with this platform. So here's like loads of different scenarios, what you can do with it, and you can attach MFAs, custom MFAs, you can attach all kinds of different solutions for sign-in flows, multi-factors, even passwordless solutions, and almost anything. And you could maybe basically integrate this with any existing SSO solution also. But then if you take a look, for example, this kind of policy, we can see how much setup this is. Oh, this was quite simple. For example, the user info endpoint needs to be implemented customly here. So you need to understand what these XMLs do, why they work the way they do. And there could be, I have seen thousands of lines of, in one policy, these XML files. And I guess if you make a mistake and you deploy it to production, everything breaks. Or I'm afraid of that at least, and that's why we try to change those policies as little as possible. But that's pretty much what I have planned for. Any questions about our solution or AD B2C overall?
I have a question. Does this work? Yeah, it does. Have you had any sort of like outages with the B2C that would be like on the responsibility of Microsoft? Of course, you maybe had some mistakes on your end, but how has the service been otherwise?
I think there has been like a couple of outages what we have been able to figure out from Microsoft's side, and I think mostly those have occurred because we have integrated our own identity backend or master data solution, and there might have been outages in the Microsoft side, and that has affected there, but really, really little in the. I don't think that there has been any major things happened.
Right. Yeah.
And we have been really happy with the reliability of the solution.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thanks.
Another question. You mentioned the cost as a driving factor for the decision. So I imagine there's a lot of other large-scale customers that find cost to be a really big driver. So how much more affordable is this solution compared to Auth0, for example?
I believe we counted like at least tens of thousands in year, the cost difference in some scenarios in the future, since we need to plan for the growth in our business, and in the future we needed to find a solution that is scalable in that sense. And it's been really hard, since I think the pricing has been changing quite a lot in this product, so I'm not even sure how much we are spending at the moment, but not too much.
But you don't regret the choice?
No.
So yeah, I have one question about like how is the experience of automating stuff like in release pipelines when you actually do some changes on the Azure AD B2C side? What is the experience of, for example, from Azure DevOps side or GitHub Actions side? How does well it integrates to the services?
I think, I'm not sure how well it integrates to any specific CI platform, but it can be done with the REST calls. You can update the policies and that kind of stuff, so you should be able to automate all the things that are meaningful. And maybe the biggest pain point in the automation side that you need to have policies for each tenant that you deploy the solution, and we have test and staging tenants for the solution, so we need to compile the XML a couple of times. before we deploy in the specific environment. But as far as I understood, or I understand, there is not huge pain point in the automation side with this one, and it might be even easier, for example, compared to OutZero or some other solution. And it needs to be said that I was participating in the project in the study phase and planning phase, but I wasn't in the development side in this project, so I can look at these XMLs with ease. I don't have flashbacks about this. But I've been following our project quite closely, and I'm now participating one of the developers in our virtual team who is managing the solution currently.
Excellent. Any more questions? If not, thank you very much, Simo.
Thank you.
Yay. And we'll have a couple of minute technical break when we change the presenters.
So, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And so I guess I am a bit of the lightweight snack presentation here in between all the technical content. And, well, I'll be presenting today about presenting. And since I've gotten to chance to be part of this creation of the Azure and Friends event, one aspect, as was also mentioned in the introductions, was that we want to enable new speakers to get speaking. And so my presentation today is also related to that, almost like kind of like how do you get started if you have not been speaking before, or even if you've been speaking earlier, you might maybe find some inspiration here. So I'm Heini Ilmarinen. I work as a DevOps consultant for Polar Squad here in Finland. I am a Microsoft Data Platform MVP, though I do combine a bit of data and architecture and infrastructure as well. I am also 1/3 of the Knee Deep in Tech podcast, and my kind of take on things always has the architecture point of view to it, so that's kind of where I always start from. And my background is from mathematics, so I'm a bit of a math nerd still. And as you might see, I'm a bit of a serial doodler as well, and you'll see that in this presentation as well. So I do quite many speaking things nowadays, but I actually have not been speaking that long, and I never thought that I was a very good speaker, actually, before I started speaking. It was not something that came very naturally to me. And so a few years ago, well, actually only about a year and a half ago, I got invited to a Power BI user group in Sweden to speak by one of my colleagues at my previous employer. And so I was like, okay, this is an interesting idea. Maybe I could speak about something. And the thing is, I don't even do Power BI myself. I don't create reports, even though I work with data. So I started to figure out, well, what is it that I could give to somebody who is working with Power BI? Because I work more on the Azure side. So I decided, well, I could talk about Azure infrastructure for the Power BI consumer and talk from that perspective, because it would be something that I would be able to give to somebody who works with Power BI. And so actually when I started to plan my session, I took a piece of paper, I grabbed a pen, and I started to kind of outline what I wanted to tell. What were my main points in my presentation that I wanted to portray. And so I figured out that, well, I want to give some kind of introduction. I don't quite know what that is yet, but I want to tell why they would want to listen to this session. Then I realized that, well, then I want to give some kind of overview of what are the Azure services. I want to talk about the platform as a service side, but also give a little bit of an overview of the infrastructure as a service side as well, just running data things on virtual machines. Because the reality is that still some things are running on those. So I wanted to portray what are the differences in terms of how you connect to them from Power BI. And then I wanted to talk about what things you need to be considering to be able to connect to those services. And I drew myself a little picture to like figure out what am I saying here. And then as the last point, I realized I want to talk about this concept of invisible infrastructure and how I think infrastructure is the best when you cannot see it, you cannot smell it, you don't bump into it in an unpleasant way, it just works. And for, I think, people who work with Power BI, it normally does not always portray in that way. So it's kind of something you need to aim for. So this way I created kind of the storyline that I wanted to present. And I don't necessarily wasn't planning like, hey, I'll start with a storyline, but this is something that I have picked up from there on out. And every time I create a new session, I start with a storyline. And if you're thinking in your head like, well, could I be speaking about something at Azure and Friends? You might want to think first, well, what kind of story would I like to tell? What is it that I would have of value that I could share that would be beneficial to others? So that's where you could start. So I had my storyline, and next I was thinking like, well, I don't actually like creating presentations that much. I don't find creating PowerPoints that exciting. And so actually my background is in teaching. I used to be a math teacher. So when I would be teaching math, what I would be doing is writing either on the whiteboard or like one of those document cameras that we have nowadays. And I would be explaining math and talking and writing at the same time. So pretty much I would be kind of writing and talking. And so I was starting to think like, well, how could I bring this to my slides? And well, the first attempt isn't quite as pretty as it is now, but I've kind of stuck to that style. I like the fact that I can kind of draw things out while I speak. So what I did there was really trying to find the style in which I want to present. And of course, I also need to have a point of view, because we can talk about the same thing from many, many different points of views. So you can kind of decide what is the angle from which you want to talk from. And again, for me, it very much is about architecture, looking at all the different layers, looking at the networking, looking at access control, looking at the different services that are available. And so I kind of, through making that first presentation, I started to be on this path, but of course it's not that I just did that one presentation and I was done, and after that speaking and making presentations was super easy. No, not at all. It took ages to create that first presentation, and yeah, even with the ones following after that, it's still quite a process. Nowadays I can say I'm much, much faster at it, and I have gotten better at it. So the one thing that really kind of keeps it interesting for myself is though that I have these kind of points where I start from. I start with a storyline. I keep my point of view consistent even though I talk about different topics, and I keep my style kind of consistent. On the other hand, I also try to always incorporate something new to my presentations. Even if I'm doing the same presentation more than once, I always change it for the next session. And I think this has actually been especially important in this online time when you're just talking at your own laptop in your own office and you don't really have an audience. It kind of keeps things interesting, kind of having that evolving in the picture. So here is actually a slide from my very first presentation that I did at the Power BI user group. And I actually recently redid this session. I redid all the slides. It was pretty much doing the kind of same storyline, but redoing it completely. And it was kind of fun to go back and laugh at my old slides and how they looked, and kind of, I wasn't very skillful with everything. So it's been kind of nice to see that progression. And then on contrast, this is one of my most recent sessions that talks about Azure AD for the data services. And this one slide, I've kind of let the automation run for this one, but this particular slide I talk about for about 15-20 minutes on the differences for authentication you have for the different services, and really kind of mapping out the big picture for people to understand, well, it's not, you don't have the same method for all services, and really trying to make that easy to understand and figure out what would you use where, and what are the options. So it looks a little bit different, but it hasn't come kind of overnight. This has been a progression over all the different presentations that I've done over the last year and a half. So why I'm telling you all this is because I do want to encourage you to think about what could be the story that you would be sharing. Once you figure out the story that you want to share, then you can think about, well, what would be your point of view? What point of view do you want to tell that from, and what kind of style do you want to use? And then if you do your first session and you get excited, then you can just keep evolving and keep it kind of fun for yourself. And I think the one important thing is that with presentations, we can get creative. We don't need to do the same style as everybody else does. We can decide to do a full-on demo from start to beginning. We can do slides, we can do video. We have so many options out there, and they have not all been even kind of invented yet. So think outside of the box a little bit. And of course, since we want to encourage you specifically to get started speaking here at Azure and Friends, remember that this is your chance to become an Azure friend. So contact us. Of course, if you're here live, just come to us and we'll hook you up with one of our more experienced speakers, and we'll help you get the process started. I also had a lot of help when I started, and it's really, really, really beneficial. So it's a good chance for you. So thank you so much. I hope you got some encouragement and inspiration from this, and I hope you enjoy the next slot.
Good, thank you. Do we have any questions here? Yes, just a second, we have a question.
Hi, I have a question regarding your, shall we say, extremely visual style for the presentations. Have you noticed a lot of benefit from customers? Are they paying more attention to this type of presentation compared to the regular, black and white, boring blob on a soulless PowerPoint?
Yes, well, I don't necessarily present this style to customers necessarily. I'll get to how I do that. But I've presented at a lot of online conferences, and I do get a lot of feedback specifically on the style and oh, it's so interesting to follow and what will happen next. And then actually when I talk with customers, because I maybe just don't do presentations so much in general for customers, but I do talk about architecture and figuring out the solutions. I actually use the whiteboard a lot and draw the things out as we speak. And it does help people to just understand what are we talking about, does it work this way, or have I misunderstood something? Just drawing it out makes it a little easier to pinpoint if we're actually talking about the same thing and ensuring that we have all the facts straight. Yeah.
Cool. Then a follow-up on that. Do you
Yes.
get negative feedback on it?
At least nobody has said it to my face yet. So I'm not sure, maybe secretly.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Good. Any more questions? Well, I have one. Also from the first slide you drew, the first one you presented, from the visual style, I'm guessing you can say you don't have to be a proper graphical expert to start this. You can do it even a bit dirtier or messier, and just as long as you get your message away. And the second one, what have you gotten out of this speaking spiel you do, or when you go out and do the presentations?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I definitely get a lot out of it because I just need to know the things deeper that I talk about than what I actually talk about. So it's a lot of just digging deeper and figuring out any restrictions and things like that. So it's been really good for me in terms of just gaining more knowledge myself, as well as just being more comfortable talking. Those are, I think, the two main things.
Okay, next question. If you're creating a new presentation for, whatever streaming session or giving a talk, when is your presentation ready? Are you more like a deadline-driven person, or do you set goals for yourselves that okay, I'm gonna create this storyline, and when I have these like checkboxes filled, then this presentation is ready?
Yes, I'm definitely a deadline person. It might have looked a little more controlled here through my presentation, what my process is, than it's actually more just scramble and get it together, and then it just clicks. And I think with my presentations, they're like, I get to a point where I'm like, okay, now I need to test run it to know if it works. And then I keep adjusting it a little bit for every kind of run I do. So even if I present something, I normally then go back and tweak it after it. So yeah, I'm a bit more chaotic in my or kind of preparation style.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Good, excellent. If there's any more questions, thank you very much. I think there were some good points here on, for example, it doesn't have to be ready when it started. You can go through it, and there's space for everybody in this field. But small technical break again, and we'll change speakers. Thank you.
Joo. Eli olen tunnettu myös nimeltä Mr. Murphy, eli rikoin tämän mikrofonin tuossa jo heti alkuun. Se jotain antaa kuvaa, mitä voitte odottaa lopulta. All right. So welcome to listen to presentation, how not to do presentation properly. So I'm like the bad example of this presenting. So I actually updated the LinkedIn around 4 o'clock. So I should start properly doing the presentation. Okay, that was a joke. I actually did this a couple of hours earlier. So yeah, today's kind of set is about Bicep. What, why, how? And I'm Jani from Mallow, and my face might be a little bit familiar because I used to work for Microsoft, so I've been giving presentations that were looking like professional earlier, but now I'm rid of that kind of stuff. So yeah, Mallow, just quickly, is a company founded by Reactor last spring, and me and a couple of other guys joined it, and we are doing Azure architecture advisory stuff. So maybe I should give you a trigger warning if you are a Terraform guy or girl or something else. Next picture might be a bit offending. So I'm talking about Bicep. So that's the thing that Microsoft kind of came up with, not to replace ARM, but to give a kind of a better option. So basically what happened is that people were starting to kind of move to Terraform quite a lot. And well, anybody who has done ARM knows that's not for like real people. Like if you love ARM and understand ARM, you will not pass Turing test. So Bicep is kind of for normal people how to do infrastructure as code. So it's a domain-specific language like ARM. Just kind of a terminology thing, so I'm kind of also messing it up myself. So ARM templates. When I talk about ARM templates, so I'm talking about the old JSON type of ARM templates. So actually Bicep is also an ARM template. It's a Bicep language template, but basically both ARM and Bicep, those JSON templates, are both the same thing. And yeah, so it's a declarative code. other option is the imperative, like you would do PowerShell or whatever. So ARM and Bicep, all those are declarative Terraform. And the point of Bicep is that it's just smarter syntax, it's more modular, and you can like really reuse it. Basically, you can do all those with ARM as well, but it's just quite painful. So actually, there's a lot of choices if you want to do this kind of stuff. There is ARM, of course, the old JSON 10 Terraform, Pulumi, Crossplane. I don't know if anybody actually uses that. So what do I choose? That's a kind of question that comes up. I'm just giving some of my opinionated answers here. So first option is the famous ARM JSON templates. Anybody who has done it, you know, you do a little bit extra space somewhere, and then it's like you got 8,000 errors, and it's like, okay, I go home now. There's a lot of boilerplate code there that's kind of unnecessary. You don't really need that, but it just have to be there. That's pain in the somewhere behind there. Resource dependencies, those are kind of nice. ARM doesn't take any, like, it basically throws you in the water and says, learn to swim. So try to figure them out, what they are. And yeah, 10 modules, you have those in ARM JSON as well. It would be very nice if they could work in the local file system, but no, let's just use URL syntax. So basically you have to put, if you want to have modules, you have to have them somewhere like in GitHub or somewhere, or web server. So local development is really fun and enjoyable experience. Then the second option is this Terraform, and it's kind of Swiss knife. So basically it's a tool that kind of fits everything and it's bad at everything. Sorry, Terraform people. So you can beat me later on. So actually, if you can. I'm quite fast running. Biggest problem with Terraform is that it doesn't support everything. So if you're doing basic infrastructure, yeah, that's good. You can do virtual machines, you can do basic services, but then when you have something more complicated, let's say that you are a masochist person and want to deploy a service fabric, for example, then it just doesn't support everything. So then you have to do something even more fun. You have to add ARM JSON templates and run them through Terraform. And if you don't know what pain is yet, then you will know. And state file is the other problem that I have with that. Okay, that's kind of something we can discuss later on. Is that a problem? But basically, if you mess up your state file, then you need to change your diapers probably, because everything is held in one text file basically, and if that gets corrupted, then you have to rebuild it. There's tools to do that, but they don't bring all the state from there. So you get maybe 90%, and rest you need to kind of figure out yourself. And if you have a huge infrastructure, yeah, you know what it is. And then we are talking about why I'm so fan of Bicep. So I think Bicep is just so cute. So basically it has 0-day support for everything in Azure. So all resources, APIs, everything just is supported from day one. It's type safe, not like the little brother ARM. You don't have any state files there, but the Azure itself is the state. And one nice thing is the validation of the whole template pre-flight. So basically, if you're running a huge Terraform template, and then on the virtual machine 498, it says, hey, you run out of cores, tough luck. Then, yeah, it's tough luck, because it has run everything until that, and then it just fails. But what Bicep does, it will check pre-flight that, hey, can you actually deploy this, and it say, hey, no, you will run out of cores, you cannot do it. So this will save you a lot of time in bigger deployments. One thing, Visual Studio Code has a really nice Bicep extension, like IntelliSense and everything, all that crap, you know. And it can also see inside the modules, so it can like bring you values from there. And one really cool thing is the Azure portal will support export as Bicep. So one product group member mentioned that he didn't mention when it's coming, but it's coming. So now you have an option already to export as ARM template out of JSON, but you will have an option to do it in Bicep as well. So that will help you a lot. You can just get ready stuff out of there. And also Bicep is supported by Microsoft in their support plans. So not if, but when you screw up, you can get help from your friendly Microsofties, like Mr. Barona was mentioning here, that they are very kind and helpful. Okay. Yep, and there's some Finnish there. Integrate easily to your CI/CD pipeline helposti. Sorry, all our international viewers, all you three. Yeah, so actually it's really nice integrated to everything. You can do CI/CD. It's just built-in support there. Yep, and it's integrated to Azure deeply, like all those blueprints supported. You can do Azure Data Factory CI/CDs as well with Bicep. And then there's this AC deployment what if. So you can do this kind of deployment and see that if I run this, what would change? What would happen? So that's kind of nice option as well. I know Terraform has something similar as well, but ARM JSON didn't used to have that. So now there's an option for that. Then there's these deployment scripts. They are kind of adding custom behavior to your deployment. They are run in a container, Docker container, when you are deploying, and you are getting it to the file share, the output from there. But of course, it's not all fluffiness. So yet another language to learn. It can be an issue, maybe not, it's not that difficult, but basically anyway you need to learn something new again, and perhaps you need to still keep up with the other stuff as well. It's relatively new. At 0.3 was the first version that was kind of production ready. Now we are at 0.4 if I remember correctly. And like I was working with this with one project a couple of months ago, and it seems like every week something changed and I had to just update stuff there. So that's kind of drag a little bit. Now it's been a little bit more stable last month, let's say. And the timetable for the portal support is still like not clear when it will come. And one thing is that those ARM user-defined functions can't be imported to Bicep, and there will be no support for them ever. They're going to do something a bit different with Bicep. So if you are using those, you need to rewrite them. So just an idea how stuff is actually deployed to Azure. Everything goes through Azure Resource Manager. So basically, even Terraform has to use it. So it's using REST clients and communicate with Azure Resource Manager. So what happens behind the scenes with Bicep is kind of building an ARM templates out of your Bicep code. You will not see it. In earlier versions, you saw the version of the ARM template it created. Now it's something that is not even visible to you. It just deploys it. But it will still, behind the curtains, do the ARM template first. So there's just a comparison, Bicep on the left, ARM on the right. Basically same thing, creating a blob container. It's quite much less code if you compare these two. It's no point to go through all the lines there, but basically it's just this part is creating the storage account, and this is creating the container. Quite small amount of code required. So this is how you deploy. Basically, you just install the Bicep, but with the latest AC, it actually comes pre-built within there, so you don't even have to install it. You do the login, set the account, set which resource group you want to put your stuff, and then create the deployment group with your template. A little bit showing you the code. So basically you have parameters, variables there. Parameters, you need to define the type, and you can give a value, kind of default value, or you can leave it out. Variables, it kind of figures out what's the type of the variable, so you don't need to write the type there, or you even cannot write it. It supports strings, int, booleans, and objects and arrays. You can do all kind of numeric and logical operators. So it kind of behaves like a programming language, but it's not. You cannot do hello world. Sorry to say. There's really nice helper functions there. For example, if you want to know the resource location, you can just ask from the resource group .location, okay, where are you deploying this stuff? And then when a resource needs that parameter, you can just get it like that and give the location. You can create unique names there, do string interpolation. You can force this kind of allowed values only. You can say that environment can be only dev or prod, for example. And then you can do this kind of conditional deployment. For example, here, let's say that you are deploying to production 10, you set the storage account SQ as a standard GRS. But if it's not production 10, just use the local redundant storage. It's kind of also cuts a lot of unnecessary code away. Modules, this is how you kind of would reference to another module. You give a name to it, my module there, and then on rest of your Bicep you can just say my module dot something and reference the stuff that's inside there. You can get output values from the module and so on. You can limit the values. You can put this kind of descriptions there. It's kind of comment. You can use the normal commenting as well, but you can give this kind of description for whatever there's happening. The parameter priority is kind of thing that you can set a default value for parameter. So if nobody gives the parameter, then you use that. Then next thing is the parameter file. It looks from there, the next, and if there's something, it overrides the default value. And then you can also give in command line. So if there's something in default and in parameter file, still the command line parameter will override those two. So there's kind of 3 levels of parameters you can give. This is how the parameter files kind of look. They are a little bit scary, more like traditional ARM templates look and feel. You can use key vault and get keys and secrets from there. This is how you would pass a value from key vault to a module. You just tell that, okay, there's an API key parameter and get from key vault API key. You can do conditional deployments. So you can do this kind of if something, for example, here is Boolean, deploy storage account 10, you do this. You can do all kind of nice things. You can do copy loops. So in this example, it's going there in the resource, all the storage account names in storage account names array here, and creating storage accounts based on those. Here's a variable loop sample, more advanced. So basically there's a subnet array where you can define all your subnets, and then it's here kind of looping them in, and there it's set for the network. So you can do quite a nice advanced stuff with this. And you can still get the JSON ARM template if you want from Bicep. It's just an option. And that's how you would deploy it in the Azure DevOps. So basically it's just AZ deployment group create. Quite simple stuff. Quickly the tools. So the best tool to use is the Visual Studio Code with Bicep extension. You see something on the red there. That's a funny situation. Would you think that Microsoft runs out of money? They actually did. So they had this Bicep playground where you can see ARM templates and versions of that in Bicep as well. But a couple of days ago, Bicep has just got enough traction that they got too much traffic, and they run out of money for that group that does Bicep. So their Azure consumption limit hit, and they had to take it down. Say that, come back next month. So that link works after a few days. You can do Bicep with Azure CLI and PowerShell. Azure DevOps supports it. And all the development is done in GitHub, in the GitHub/Azure/Bicep. So you can go there and see all the latest what's happening. I was planning to do demo here, but I kind of think that because computer is 1 kilometer below me, I'm not gonna start doing that now. But if anybody has any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Good, excellent. Almost convinced me from using Terraform and switching to Bicep. Any questions? Yep, just a second.
Not sure if you are familiar with the AWS CDK, but would that have been smarter move to Microsoft go in that direction to go more?
AWS, what is that?
Yeah.
Why Microsoft didn't, for example, embrace Terraform? Same thing, because they don't have the 100% control over it. So they cannot get you 100% support 0 day for all their features if they don't have the full control over that. So that's why they needed to kind of create their own.
But basically, Microsoft could have developed CDK-like tooling for Azure, and do you think that would have been a smarter move?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of, I think this is still perhaps better way, but it's kind of a matter of opinion. And of course, everybody is entitled to my opinion.
Yeah. And actually, to answer to that, I think the Bicep team has said that they specifically wanted to support ARM. So for some reason, they think a lot of people use ARM and have created hundreds of millions of ARM templates, which would have been useless if they switched to something else. So they wanted to specifically use Bicep in a way that can utilize the old ARMs. That's why it does actually the transformation to ARM templates and then does it. But is it the right way to do it? That's why I use Terraform. For now. I have to say Bicep is quite good.
Yeah, and ARM is not going anywhere.
No,
it's still there like a core technology.
Quick question from my part. Being like an old school ARM guy doing suicide every other week, hunting a comma that's been misplaced or put in as an extra, how painful is the transition from ARM to Bicep? If I have to learn something new again, so what are we talking about? Like weeks, or is it bashing your head against the wall for 7 months and switching to be a garbage man?
My experience was kind of like, I'm an old developer, so I have done all kind of coding before, and I just like, maybe this works like this, and I was, what? It actually worked like this. Why did they make this so intuitive and it just works?
That can't be true. That's Microsoft.
Yeah, I know.
mean,
I was
no
very
way,
confused. But yeah, so actually it doesn't take you many days. It's actually super easy. It's just because you can use their tooling to just kind of see, okay, here I have ARM template, how it translates to Bicep. And that's how I kind of figured out how should I do this and that.
All right, second part of the question, because there seems to be like maybe, I don't know, a couple of 100 million ARM templates out there. So how many Bicep templates are there already for me to utilize outside of the Microsoft repo?
Outside, not that many, but all the samples are basically in Bicep nowadays. Like if you go to Azure Docs, you can select basically ARM or Bicep pretty much for everything.
All right, cool. Thanks, man.
Yes, one more question, just a second.
Yes, hi. If you're creating something on like infrastructure as code and you're using Bicep, what if you have to create something, resources that ARM templates and Biceps are not able to do? For example, Azure AD resources like Azure AD users or groups or whatnot. Do you have a personal declarative approach for that? Or is that just like a matter of opinion?
Yeah, it's just that it's still not supporting that. So basically do whatever makes you happy.
Do you have any idea, do they even have that on the roadmap? Is that something that's maybe up and coming sometimes, or?
I'm not at least aware.
Okay, thanks.
Good. And I don't think there's going to be any more questions, at least here. So thank you very much, Jani. And that's it for our first Azure and Friends event. Thank you everybody for watching online. Thank you everybody attending here, and we'll continue now with our networking event. So I think we're having pizza and soft drinks and alcoholic drinks, because why not? A lot of drinks. Okay, so thank you everybody, and we'll see you later, hopefully.